Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the AZFSTV6 channel. The place for you all to search for information about anime, manga, and much more. So, make sure you watch until the end of the video. Oh yeah, don't forget to press the subscribe button below and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss our latest videos. Your support means a lot, and of course, it's free. Let's get started. Moria had a feeling that his shadow was strong and immediately cut it in front of Nami and the others. Moria, who had obtained Luffy's shadow, ordered that only the freezer containing zombie number 900 be opened. He wanted to awaken the strongest subordinate who could defeat Kaido, so he could become the Pirate King. But suddenly Spider misreported that their commander, the Monkey Spider, had its shadow removed. This made Absalom and Hogback worry about the incident from 5 years ago, which was when Brook rampaged at Thriller Bark. Meanwhile, Brook asked Franky and Robin to just return to the ship. Because it is possible, his friend has returned unconscious because his shadow has been taken. Moria will not kill his prey, because if his human body dies, then his shadow dies too. Therefore, he will release his prey alive. Haven't left yet, Brook also gives them salt, which is a weakness for those zombies. The zombies there can live due to the power of Gekimoria's devil fruit, which is very weak against the sea. And of course, the salt has the same energy as the sea. So, if sprinkled on zombies, the shadow of the devil fruit will come off their fake bodies. In short, after parting with Brook, Franky cried because Brook told him something sad. Brook also went back upstairs and slaughtered the painting zombies there. Moreover, it turned out that he had fallen earlier due to being defeated by a zombie using his shadow. On the other hand, Moria had reached the refrigerator containing the 900th zombie. He was about to revive the legend from 500 years ago, namely Oars, with Luffy's shadow. When Moria inserted Luffy's shadow, Oars' heart began to beat and brought him to life. Then, Oars opened his eyes, which caused Nami and the others who were hiding to fall down in fear. As a result, they were discovered and quickly fled. As for Oars, he immediately asked for meat as soon as he regained consciousness. He also mentioned Sanji's name and asked for his food, even though he forgot who Sanji was at that moment. In any case, Oars truly has a foolish character similar to Luffy. In her escape, Nami realizes that Oars' nature of asking for meat is just like Luffy. The penguin that resembled Sanji earlier surely also has Sanji's shadow. Additionally, the samurai in Hogback's lab also possesses Brook's shadow. All those events began to unravel. Suddenly, Nami was captured by Absalom. She was taken away quickly. Then, Usopp and Chopper were surrounded by zombies and almost gave up. But fortunately, Robin and Franky came and purified the zombies with salt. As a result, Chopper and Usopp managed to survive. Brook, who wants to fight Yuma, is still running upwards, while Yuma is just waiting while drinking tea. Yuma is also puzzled because anyone who hears his name should be frightened. But Brook is not afraid and instead continues to fight for his shadow. By the way, before we continue, for those of you who are new to this channel, don't forget to subscribe first. Just click the red button below, it's free, and you will get more exciting content from me. Okay, let's continue now. Meanwhile, Franky and Robin informed Usopp and Chopper that the zombies' weakness is salt. They head towards the Sunny to look for Luffy, Sanji, and Zoro, as per Brook's direction earlier. On the other side, Oz, the revived Luffy, is demanding a lot of food. He is very similar to Luffy. When Moria ordered him to become his subordinate, he refused and said he still had dreams. Oz, like Luffy, also breached the wall. He felt confined and needed air while shouting that he would become the Pirate King. Returning to Brook, he managed to find Yuma. But Yuma once again reminded Brook of the events from 5 years ago. At that time, when Brook's shadow was first taken, he approached Hogback and threatened to spread salt if he was not told where the zombie that used his shadow was. However, the zombie did not show up, until Brook went on a rampage defeating the zombies on the island. It was then that Yuma appeared. They were in a fierce battle to the point where Brook was at his limit, and Yuma was threatening to cut Brook's proud afro. Because of the pressure, Brook pleaded to be released and to leave the island. That was Brook's most embarrassing moment. But now, he has returned after 5 years and claimed himself to be stronger. Meanwhile, Absalom took Nami to a place. There, he asked his subordinate to dress the unconscious Nami in a wedding gown as the wedding was about to take place. As soon as they arrived in Sanago, Franky, Robin, Usopp, and Chopper were shocked. It already looked like a ship that had been looted. Even though there were no valuable items, all the food was gone. Fortunately, Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji were found there. They were then immediately awakened by Usopp. Meanwhile, Nami's wedding dress was finished. Absalom was so lewd that he even peeked at Nami while she was changing her clothes. Back to Luffy. After waking up, he only realized that all his food was gone. Their eggs also lost Nami. That was when Usopp tried to explain their situation at that time. After understanding what Usopp explained, they made a plan of action. Like looking for Sanji the Penguin, Zoro the Swordsman, and defeating Luffy Oz, as well as thwarting Nami's wedding. Before that, Franky mentioned that he had met Brook. At that moment, Franky agreed with Luffy to bring Brook into their crew. Because he is a true man. Despite his terrifying appearance and the fact that everyone stays away from him, leaving him to be alone, Brook still wants to live to fulfill his promise to one of his crew members. He didn't want his crew to think that they betrayed him by not returning. One of his crew was a whale named Laban. At that time, Brook promised to come back to pick him up, but he and his friends were killed instead. Hearing that, Luffy, Zoro, Usopp, and Sanji immediately remembered the big whale Laban at Rivers Mountain, and they recognized the whale. Then Sanji added a story about Laban. When they managed to pass through the gate to the Grand Line, there was a big whale named Laban who had been waiting for his friends to return from the sea for 50 years. The whale was also guarded by an old man inside its stomach. There, Laban was informed that his friend would never return again, but the whale did not listen and instead started banging its head against the wall. Unexpectedly, one of the people Laban was waiting for was Brook. Meanwhile, Brook is struggling to retrieve his shadow in order to fulfill his promise to Laban. Despite it being 50 years and Brook having become a skeleton, he still maintains his afro because it is the only identity that Laban can recognize. Eventually, the Straw Hat crew agrees to make Brook a member of their crew and to reunite Brook with Laban, thereby honoring his promise at the Cape. Then they prepared to destroy Thriller Bark this time. On the other hand, The orb possessed by Luffy's shadow clearly represented Luffy's foolish character. It also insisted on using the Gum Gum power, even though it couldn't, and climbed the main mast of the Thriller Bark ship like a captain. Meanwhile, Luffy and his crew are back to discussing, with Luffy clearly being to the point and ready to directly attack the Shichibukai, which is Gekomoria, to save all the shadows that have been taken. Luffy also assigns Sanji to take care of Nami, who is about to get married. Sanji is truly enthusiastic and fiery with emotion. Thank you for watching this video until the end. If you like the content, don't forget to click the like button, share with your friends, and write your thoughts in the comments section. I really want to hear what you think. And of course, for those of you who haven't subscribed yet, just click the subscribe button below and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any exciting upcoming videos. Remember, your support makes this channel more enthusiastic about creating content. See you in the next video. Stay healthy, stay motivated, and always be the best version of yourself. Bye.